We're going to talk about emergency response, which is very important right now, and resilience and self-care as a social worker. And to discuss this topic with us today, I have Dr. Stephanie Felder. She's a commander in the U.S. Public Health Service Commissioned Corps. She serves as the TBI Outcomes Program Manager for the Defense Health Agency Research and Development, Traumatic Brain Injury Center of Excellence. She also has spent 9 years in the U.S. Public Health Service, providing program management, technical assistance, research, and data analysis within several agencies within the Department of Health and Human Services. Prior to active duty, she served as the Healthcare for Homeless Veteran Coordinator for the Fayetteville VA Medical Center in North Carolina. So Dr. Felder, thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I have to tell you, those of you watching, I am very excited to have Dr. Felder with us because I'm very impressed by the work that she does, all that she takes on.
Thank you.
It's almost like she doesn't have fear, and she's like, I'm gonna take on these positions to really make a difference and have an impact. Yeah. So just to give us a sense of where you're coming from in terms of resiliency and disaster response, emergency response, if you could just share with us, Dr. Felder, the positions you've held and how it's played a part in those topics.
Yeah, so I've held many positions in social work, pretty diverse. I started my career in social services in North Carolina, and then moved to a state position as a licensed clinical social worker in a locked residential. And then shortly thereafter, moved to a position as the healthcare coordinator for homeless veterans at the VA in Fayetteville, North Carolina. That position was pretty amazing. I learned a lot about homeless veterans and their needs. From there, I actually became active duty myself. I was really inspired by the veterans that I saw and the veterans that I worked with that came back to, serve other veterans. I became active duty, and then that's when all of the really interesting and intense work, I would say, started. I took a position with SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. Many social workers know of that agency. But what was interesting with that position was that was my introduction really into emergency management. That position actually was an interagency agreement with FEMA, and it was for the Crisis Counseling Program. We call it the FEMA CCP. And so in the CCP, our sole purpose was to provide grant funding to states, tribes, and territories that had recently experienced a major disaster, and it was declared by the president. And that just really focused on the need for mental health after a disaster. And I did that position for about 4 years. I loved the work. And I was also, at that time, in the Public Health Service Commissioned Corps as well. So that's when I became active duty. I entered into the Public Health Service. And so that really, it was the start of all of my deployments and the start of my understanding of the importance of the real importance of self-care. And then I also saw the resilience in communities when I went out to Oklahoma after some major tornadoes, just seeing that community come back together and build the support that you saw just coming from all other states and all around. That is when I realized the true importance of resilience and then also self-care. From there, I had many other great opportunities. I moved on to HRSA, which is the Health Resources Services Administration, and managed HIV/AIDS grants for communities. Once again, realizing the importance of self-care and resilience among these communities and the people that work really hard in the Ryan White programs to provide services to people that are underserved and otherwise wouldn't receive that high level of medical care, with the focus of, medical retention and viral load suppression with, for folks with HIV and AIDS. From there, another great opportunity came about for evaluation. And so I moved over to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. And I served as the lead evaluator for hospice and home health. Learned a great deal about, hospice care, home health care, and really more so the focus on the evaluation side of that. And that led to my next position, which was what you mentioned earlier, with the Defense Health Agency as the traumatic brain injury, the chief of traumatic brain injury outcomes. And I love that position, stayed there for about 2 years. And I just recently transitioned from that position to the Office of the Surgeon General, Commission Corps headquarters, where I'm now the lead licensed clinical social worker for the Public Health Emergency Response Strike Team. And we call that the FIRST. And it's called the FIRST, that's the acronym, but it's called the FIRST because we will be the first to deploy and lead in disasters. So throughout those job changes, I've learned a lot. I've also, throughout that whole experience, I was deploying throughout those jobs as well, with the support of great managers and leaders. I really started to deploy around 2017. I think that's when the tempo really picked up for me. Hurricane Harvey, I went out for that. And then in 2018, I went out for Hurricane Florence, which was in Clayton, North Carolina. I served as the lead case manager, the lead discharge planner, and the liaison to the state of North Carolina. I mentioned earlier that I had worked local, state, and federal government in North Carolina. So I received a in the field promotion, is what we call it, when you're out and you're thinking you're going to do one job and then you get promoted to a new job, in the field. And so that was pretty intense and scary, anxiety provoking for me, because it was a true leadership position in the field. And it was also in the state of North Carolina, where the people that I was seeing were people that, I felt like that's family, because I'm from the Carolinas, I'm from South Carolina, and I had lived in North Carolina for so long, and I still, maintain a home there as well. So it was personal. So self-care was definitely important during that mission, trying to manage, the process, but also manage my own emotions and reactions to all of that. And then 2019, it just continued with the humanitarian border crisis, and I responded to that twice as well. And of course, that was definitely a life-changing experience to see, how that whole process kind of unfolded as far as the things on the border, and that continues even now. And then 2020, COVID-19 in New York, I was there as well as the behavioral health officer in charge. And of course, I don't think I have to say too much about that, and how the anxiety around and the uncertainty last year, during that time in 2020, and then, in the height of the pandemic from March through May, to be in New York, seeing everything that was happening, it was definitely life-changing.
Yeah, most certainly. I would imagine so. Wow. Yeah, so there's several things I'd love to talk to you about in terms of your experience, but just to start, in terms of social work, it seems like social workers are like really well positioned for these kind of activities in terms of emergency response. Because when there's a emergency response, it's like connecting the community, coordinating with different organizations and groups, and all those community resources, getting people reconnected, all the food and housing and emotional and behavioral needs, and parents and guardianship, and like all these different things, population health, all these things seem to be like the social worker is really positioned for that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think, social work and emergency management and also public health, it all goes hand in hand. Social workers, one of our core values is service. And when you read that, it states that social workers will put others' interests and the interests of the community before their own. And so, in these intense situations like hurricanes and man-made or non-man-made disasters, you really have to take a step back and you serve. I mean, service is at the forefront. And we do a lot of the case management where, helping people, find family members, or where we're helping people find a new living place or, relocate. We are, it depends, in an emergency shelter situation where people are coming into the medical shelter, we may be responsible for making sure that they receive dialysis, and then when they go home that they have oxygen. And so we do a great deal of, I think the key is the resource connection. And then also, I think we serve in a purpose to kind of, just to kind of keep the balance for everyone. And sometimes that it can become overwhelming, when you're out there and you're trying to keep all the balls in the air, so to speak. But yeah, I totally agree. Social workers are positioned for that. One of our, if you're talking to social workers, you'll hear them say, we meet people where they are. And then disaster scenarios, people are all over the place. And we come in and we try to figure out, what are the next steps? How can we help you? And then many times it's just how can we meet your basic needs so we can move on to figure out, what else we can do. And so, in hurricanes, people have, in some cases, they've just lost their homes, they've lost loved ones, and they are, really upset, frustrated, they're sad. And we have to, try to help them put those pieces back together and help them deal with that immediate, grief or whatever reaction that they're having. So yeah, social workers are definitely serving on the front lines right now, putting others before themselves and their families, because they're constantly, in the field and going out and, just advocating for the needs of others. And so it's just what we do.
Yeah, and people, people gravitate towards social work for particular reasons. And for you, what have you find satisfying or rewarding about the work that you do and have done?
Well, there's so many parts of it that's rewarding. I think for me, like what really drew me into social work is that I knew that it would give me like the knowledge, the skills, and the tools I needed to be able to make change within my community. And, working with the homeless veterans and all of the disaster management work and emergency and management work, I think that has been most rewarding, just because I've been able to see immediate change. I've done a lot of administrative work as well and policy work, and you do see that change as the policy goes out, and then you start to see the change, on the ground. But I think it's just something about being in the role when you're working one-on-one with the veterans, and in the case for me with homeless veterans, I saw veterans come in and we linked them with housing, permanent housing. And then we, linked them with mental health services or substance abuse services, whatever they needed. And then also eventually link them with work. And you would literally see veterans do a 360 from coming in from being homeless to, having a job. They're taking care of their mental health, whatever other needs that they have, and they're housed. And seeing them, really go back to the person that they were before whatever happened that led to their homelessness, it was amazing. Just having that experience several times, seeing that process play out was truly probably one of the most rewarding things that I've seen. But then also I think about at the Javits Center, seeing the Army, Navy, Public Health Service, National Guard, a sea of uniforms come together for one mission, one fight. And we just, every day we got up, we had the same mission, and we went out there and we just worked hard. And that in itself was also rewarding. So there's just so many pieces. As I continue to think, I can keep finding examples. But yeah, this is it's a great career. It's a great path.
Yeah, hard work and seeing the direct impact on people and their lives. That's great. Yeah, and so what tips would you have for social workers or anybody involved in emergency response? And I know a lot of people in this field, they might not have these huge events that they're responding to, but they might have small events, right? They might be
Mhm.
responding to a family dispute. They might be responding to a traumatic event in emergency room. They might be responding to their client simply had like a huge life transition. Um,
Mhm.
or they might be responding to a big event where a whole community is disrupted. So, can you give us some gold nuggets, some words of advice in terms of responding to those kind of things?
Well, I think first I would say, you know, be aware when you enter into any environment, whether it's a disaster environment or a domestic dispute. Just awareness, walking in with an open mind and being observant of your surroundings, taking all of that in, and then as I said earlier, meeting the person where they are. You may have an ultimate goal for them or at some point, but at that point when you engage with them, just try to build that rapport, that mutual respect, listening and understanding, and that awareness. I think that is critical in all of the scenarios that I talked about before in my disaster response. That was probably the thing that served me the most. Just walking in with an open mind, and being aware of my situation and listening and waiting to kind of build that rapport and establishing with the person or the community that this is a safe space for you and I'm here to listen. I'm here to also learn from you. And then we're going to move this on to where we need to be. Also, I think in any of the scenarios that you mentioned, as I said earlier, social workers are about service. And it is really easy to just become consumed with trying to make change. And sometimes change isn't fast. You want to see, well, this isn't right. This should happen. And we need to do this. And all of those things are happening, but they're not happening as fast as you would want. And sometimes it can become overwhelming. So while you are, working in that capacity, in partnership with the person or community, I think it's vital that you have self-reflection and evaluation, and you take time out for yourself to see how that is really impacting you. Because especially in emergency management, things are typically moving so quickly and so many moving pieces that you can easily become lost in the process and overwhelmed in the process. So kind of as you mentioned earlier, that component of self-care is vital during that whole entire process and critical for self-reflection. And that is one of the things that, I also had to work on. It's easy to say it, but it's hard to practice what you preach at times. And that is something I've definitely worked on personally, because I've seen the effects of going out and not necessarily taking care of yourself, but eventually at some point you realize that it's hard to help others and give to others when there's like nothing left there for you. So that is definitely one of those golden nuggets that I would say to always, think about your own health and your own care while you're providing care to others.
Yeah, and what have you found helpful in terms of self-care so that you can be resilient, meaning, come back for
Yeah,
more to serve more.
yeah, just have to come back for more. So a few things I've actually changed. I do yoga, meditation, and I try to make sure that I have regular exercise. All of those are things that help me to kind of ground myself and decompress. Another thing that we do, we call it battle buddies. So when we are out and deployed, wherever we may be, you identify someone and that you have built a rapport with, that you trust, you feel comfortable with, and you say, especially when you know these things, when I'm stressed, when I'm in distress, this is what you'll see, or this is what you'll hear. And if you see that, please let me know and come to me. And sometimes you may not be able to identify all of the things that, when you're stressed, what happens. But when you have that battle buddy, that person is basically always with you. So if you're going out running, that person is going out running as well, and so forth. So they are constantly with you. And that's the person that when something goes wrong or when they see something starting to go wrong, they come to you and they say, hey, you've been working the last 14 days straight. And I haven't seen you, exercise. You haven't been doing your meditation, and I'm getting worried about you. And the idea of this is your battle buddy. You don't become defensive. You say, let me take a moment and evaluate this. Yes, you're right. And then you kind of move into a process of, okay, what am I going to do to get myself back to 100%? So it's like that person is the person that literally comes to you to say, hey, you're not headed in the right direction, and it's coming from a good place. Because as I said, in these emergency management situations and disaster response, everything is moving quickly. There's not a lot of time to necessarily have downtime or, to practice some of our typical ways of doing self-care. But with that battle buddy, that person is there to say, hey, I'm here for you. I see you. And I know when you're not yourself, and I'm identifying that in you. And I've had people do that for me. And they'll say, Stephanie, you've been doing a great job here, but you need to rest.
Now,
And
in
I
terms of
and I accept that.
yeah, in terms of the battle buddy, I think you brought up a really important point there where you said not to become defensive, because I can see there
Hmm.
definitely being a tendency to be like, oh no, I'm fine, like blowing it off. I'm
Yeah.
fine. Like you're overly worried. We don't have time for this. Let's keep moving along
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
like, because I've worked in the emergency type of careers most of my life too, and like I see that a lot. And
Hmm.
so like, how do you overcome that rather than just blowing it off or becoming defensive or pushing it away?
Yeah.
Being like respecting what that person says and like, okay, like even though I don't recognize it, I guess they do. And like, how do you
Right.
recommend
How do
handling?
you? Yeah. No, it's a great question. We were actually just talking about this. I think yesterday. So there are times where, and we've all seen it, even with your battle buddy, where people, they try to blow it off, or they become angry and they lash out, and it's amazing because you see the battle buddies. They're like, okay, I hear you, but I'm still here and I'm still saying this. And it's just kind of amazing to see that whole process play out, because someone will get angry and they're like, and you wouldn't expect for them to even lash out at this person, because they're pretty cool, and you see them together and it's a, respect across the board. But,
Yeah, well,
that
it's a
battle
threat
buddy,
though. It's a threat though, right? When someone's
yes.
when someone's asking you to go to the place you don't, the place that's painful and
Hmm.
scary, it could be seen as a threat,
Hmm.
so you lash out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a thing, the battle buddy, they do not back down. Like they stand their ground, and it never fails because, and we were talking about the importance of the battle buddy and doing this with new officers. And, people were sharing their stories, and the battle buddies were in the room, and, and folks were, I remember I got so angry with you and I said this to you, and, and then the battle buddy was like, yep, and I stayed there, and then we worked it out, because we stand our ground with that. Because if you go to your battle buddy because you see something is wrong. You're not gonna pull that card unless you absolutely have to. And, they know, because you already have that rapport, they know it's coming from a good place. If they're lashing out, if they're upset and angry, after time, they begin to think about it and they're like, you're right. Or, unfortunately, in some situations, when if a person is fatigued, they may actually even, some physical, pass out or something like that, because the battle buddy came in trying to prevent something from happening, and then it still, it plays out and it happens anyway. But in every case, I will tell you, the battle buddy, they always stand their ground. And the hindsight is 20/20 stories. The person goes, and I wish I would have listened at that very moment, but I lashed out. But, you saved my life in this, or you took care of me, or you saved my career because you didn't turn away from me. So, yeah, we have those moments where the person is just like, no, I'm fine. No, I'm good. But they're not. And they're not. And so you stay on them until they recognize it, or you wait because you're on them, you're staying on them. And then there's something that, happens emotionally or physically, and you're there. And you don't leave them alone. You're there to just, pick them up and get them to where they need to be.
So I'm curious, why is it that the battle buddies stay there even though they're being turned away? Because I can definitely see the tendency of being like, fine, like if you're going to react that way, it's not worth me continuing to, try to help you with this. Or you begin to question yourself, well, gee, maybe I'm making this up. Maybe they are okay. Maybe I'm, so is it within the military, within these environments, that the battle buddies receive training and reminders, or why is it that they stick it out?
I think several reasons. Most of the time, the person that you identify as your battle buddy, there's some sort of connection there. You feel safe with that person. Or trust already established. Maybe you've deployed with that person before, and so their behaviors. They know your behaviors. So there's always a strong link. Like, you identify your own battle buddy. So first of all, you care about that person, and you know them well enough that you can identify a change. And then maybe, as I said, they may share certain things with you that you're like, okay, I wouldn't have identified that, but thanks for sharing. So first, you really care about them. Second, as officers, as public health service officers, like, it is our duty, to protect, promote, and advance the health and safety of the nation. Like, that's our mission. But, we take care of one of each other as well. Like, that is critical. And I think that part ties to the bigger picture, which is we have to complete this mission. So if you go down and, and everybody else around you, and you have this, and we all have vital positions, and we can't complete this mission, we are not protecting, promoting, and advancing the health and safety of the nation, because we can't complete our mission. We're here because we have a particular expertise in public health, in providing medical care, mental health care, whatever it might be. We're here for that reason. The state requested us, or territory requested us, because we have this expertise that they need. And so everyone who deploys, we know we're going there for that mission. And so with that battle buddy, as I said, they care about you, but at the end of the day, they want to ensure that that mission is complete. And deep down inside of you, you want to ensure that that mission is complete. You don't want to be the person that compromised the mission. So I think those two things, the care, the mutual respect between the officers or service members, And the overall picture of we have to complete this mission, it comes together enough to where that battle buddy has enough power to be able to help you realize, okay, this is what you need to do at this moment so you can be okay and we can complete this mission how we're supposed to effectively.
So the challenge to those of you listening is to identify a battle buddy and to be a battle buddy for someone else, and whatever terminology you use for that, um,
Yeah.
yeah, would be really important. I know some people have peer consultation groups, but peer
Mm-hmm.
consultation groups don't necessarily see their role as a battle buddy, to check in with how those in the group are actually, holding up with the work that they're doing. Um,
Right.
yeah,
But I think you bring up a great point there that I'm talking about an active duty scenario, but that can play out in any organization, right? I mean, I'm sure you've been in the positions where you're at work and you're doing something, and you've been pushing it, you've been burning the midnight oil, and you have a coworker come up, a colleague, and they're like, "Are you okay? Because you don't look so good, or you're pretty quiet today, or you seem frustrated today." And that's that person that they come up to you because they care and they know, it's not maybe a mission as far as like you're deployed, but that agency has a mission, or, whatever you're working on, that program, there's a mission to that. There's a objective there and goals, and they want to make sure that that happens. But at the same time, they want to make sure that you're okay within that process. So yes, absolutely. You may not call it a battle buddy, but especially now for social workers on the front lines, having someone that can even help you identify when you're just out there a little too long, or you're working too many hours, because sometimes you just get so focused on making the change, making the difference. And then you see the great need that it's like, I don't have time to go home and take care of myself. But there's people there, your family, they need you as well. Your coworkers, your colleagues, they need you to be operational, and they need you to be at 100%. So, going in the field at 25% is really not serving others well, and it's definitely not serving yourself at the end of the day.
yeah, and we interview a lot of leaders, and you've held a lot of leadership positions. So, I was wondering if you could speak to, in your leadership roles, what have you found challenging and helpful?
So I will start with what I found challenging. In my different roles, many times I think the challenges kind of center around resources. And sometimes those resources are staff, having enough staff to do a job. Sometimes it could be having enough funding to do to do a job. And then sometimes if the job is so complicated, there's so many levels of challenges, and there's so many different organizations or maybe people that you have to work with to meet that end goal, that it can become somewhat overwhelming. And I think many times in government settings, we find ourselves with having to do more with less, and that it can put a strain on your team members, and also on leadership. And there's that struggle to find the balance of getting the job done and getting it done well and effectively, and with what you have. And so that has been one of the things that I've worked on with my one of my past supervisor. And because I'm always wanting to have exactly what I need to meet the mission or to meet the goal, and this is what we have to work with. And so that's and I think that is probably pretty common, and especially now in in government environment, and probably also in private industry as well. Just being able to having to do more with less and helping your team members stay focused on that, because they feel that pressure of, okay, well, you need me to do XYZ, but I only have this much time to do it, or we don't even have enough staff to make this happen. And so helping them see, what can we do? Like, how can we scale this back, but still, provide a product that is useful, or outcome that is useful. For me, leadership, as far as in the different roles that I've been in, what's been critical, vital for me is the coaching and mentoring part of it. I think the people that I've led, they respect me because I'm always trying to mentor, I'm trying to coach, I'm trying to train, but I also value their perspective, and I listen, and I want to hear from them. I'm quick to pull the team together, and I'll say, let's brainstorm, because this is where we want to go. But all of us, we're here, and we're going to go there together. And while I might be designated as the lead, every one of you in this room, you have a purpose, you were hired for a reason, and I need that information from you. And I really, I encourage people to speak up. I want to hear from them. I want them to help, direct how we're going to get to the ultimate goal. And I really lean on that. And, at times that can be challenging as well, because sometimes there's so many ideas in the room, and there's so many, ways of getting to a endpoint. But I value all of that, and I try to, cipher or kind of move through each option and see which way is the best way to get to the final destination. And we do it as a team in a respectful way. So leadership it's been challenging, but it's also been rewarding, because I've learned, and I've been able to work with so many great people, and so many people that are just beyond dedicated to making change, that, I'll send an email late at night, and then I'll come in the next morning, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they responded at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, that was not the intent of me sending the email. I was up, I was getting work done, but I wasn't trying to get someone else to come in, and I'll say to them, they say, that wasn't the intent. And they're like, no, this is important to me. Like, this is just as important to me. So I've been blessed in that when I've been placed into leadership positions, it's always been with a group of people that are so passionate about the topic or the issue, that they're hard chargers, and they're moving it forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for what you've been doing, all the difference you've been making. And thank you to all social workers. Thank you, Dr. Felder, for sharing your experience. And I know that I've taken, I guess, golden nuggets, important information out of what you shared. It's been really helpful. So thanks again. And all of you social workers out there, you definitely play a really important role in emergency response, and please keep up the self-care. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was great speaking with you today, Ray.